So now I'm pretty happy with the body and the shape and the hair and the skin and all that kind of stuff. Let's get to the sky. Okay, so we're going to add a sky here. And what I do is when you're in Adobe Cloud, you can have a lot of your assets in the cloud in your library. And so I have clouds. I uploaded my clouds into my library. So whenever I open up my Photoshop document, these assets are always going to be there. And so these are my custom clouds. And I can just pick one, right? I kind of like this one here. So I'm going to select that cloud. And it's going to open it up into a new file. I'm going to select all, Command A, and then I'm going to copy it. Okay, then I'm going to paste it. If I hit Command Shift V, it's going to paste it dead center. Okay, now I got to in proportion kind of bring it out. Okay, so I can hit Command T for transform. If I hold the Option Shift button as I'm pulling it out, it kind of equally pulls it on both sides. So I can kind of size that image. All right, so I'll double click it, and that's kind of covering where I want it to, but I got to check out this horizon line here and see if it matches up. So I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to turn it into multiply. Now you can try different things like overlay and what works also, soft light sometimes, but in general, for me, most of the time it's going to be multiply. Okay, so that horizon is kind of cool, and generally that sky looks pretty cool. Okay, here's the problem now. I've got this sky going over the other original image, and well, it looks like I got the sunset going in front of the Eiffel Tower, which don't make sense. So you're gonna have to get rid of that. And then I have the sky going across the texture, going across her body and going across this structure here. So if I simply erase it, it's not gonna work because the sky has a highlight tone to it and a mid-tone and a dark tone. And so the highlights in the sky have to match the highlights on your subject. And so if I just simply erased areas away, so let's say if I made a mask out of this, okay? And let's say I just erased that area there. So I can take a brush, okay? And I'm just gonna show you, if I just start erasing, I'm gonna make this black, okay? It doesn't work, right? Oh, I gotta take that out because the highlight and the shadow, see that? Don't work. Because the highlight and shadow is not of this original, the highlight and shadow of this image is different than the highlight and shadow of the sky. And so when you just simply erase the areas that you want to get rid of, it just doesn't work. Let me do this again. Edit, fill, white. Okay, so what I do is I'm going to select a tone, the brightest tone of this, okay? So where's my little eyedropper there, right? And that looks pretty bright. First I got to select the sky, and I try to find the brightest tone, and whatever I select shows up in this foreground over here, okay? I can select a few things and try to find the brightest area. That's pretty good right there. You could also go in and click this and then adjust. If you want to even make it lighter, you can just pull down a bit and make that tone a little bit lighter if you want. Okay? And so now what I do is I bring back the picture, but I don't paint on the picture. I actually paint on the sky. And what I do, let me select this, and it's going to paint this tone. It's going to paint the highlight onto wherever I paint it. Okay, so I'm going to paint it. I'm going to use a fairly large brush, and I'm going to get that flow pretty low. And I'm just going to paint it over my subject. And see this wall area here? Now I can make that bright. So now it kind of matches the tone. See that? So now when I paint over this, it literally matches the tone of the sky. And then I'm going to show you how to do something later too to even match the tones even better. So now I've got a little bit, see that sky's going over this part right here. I can make my, whoa, that's about too bright, huh? I might have to choose a different tone. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is choose this tone here, which is close to that, to paint over that. Okay, so it really, Photoshop is kind of like painting and messing around with stuff. So I'm just trying to take out that tone. Sometimes when you do this, a bigger brush is better because it's going to make wide strokes. But my concern was the face. So again, I'm going to select a bright tone. Okay, and I'm going to paint over her body. Okay, now let's address this area. So what's the tone next to the Eiffel Tower? It's kind of like this dark tone here, right? So if I just use that tone, that similar tone, you can try different tones too, and paint over it. It's going to look natural by removing it. Maybe a little bit lighter tone actually. And so now, wherever that cloud coverage is, I can get rid of it by just selecting the tone. Okay. All right, so let's look and see what the sky actually, what did you just do? That's what I did. I'm just matching the tones to it. And so it's not a stark white here, but it's the tone of that. So all these tones look even. Okay, so that looks okay, but something looks wrong. And so, okay, the Eiffel Tower's blurred out, but the sky isn't. There's sharpness there. So now I'm going to Gaussian blur that sky to match. So I'm going to individually do that and go under Filter, Blur, Gaussian. And now I look at the sky and I look at the Eiffel Tower and I kind of match it a bit. Okay. And this is kind of a personal taste thing, but that looks pretty cool right there. Okay. Now, I don't like to put the sky at full strength. Okay, that looks actually pretty good, but it's kind of like skin smoothing. The less sky that you add, the more natural it looks. So what I do is take my opacity and bring it all the way down to 0. Okay, and you can see some sort of clouds in there, and then I just blend it with the rest of the sky just to give me a little interest in the sky. Okay, and so now I'm about 80% there. Okay, so I'm not doing it full, but I'm the less the better, but I just want a little bit more interesting sky. And the reason why this technique works is because when you add an interesting sky, let me just put it up to 100%. In this sky, you're going to see highlight and shadow, highlight and shadow. That's an interesting sky. Now, I purposely lit her so she can have highlight and shadow. So lighting and your post-processing go together. So because I put highlight and shadow on my subject, it was completely overcast. If I didn't add my own lighting here, I wouldn't get highlight and shadow. And I wouldn't get highlight and shadow here. I wouldn't get highlight and shadow there on her arm. I wouldn't get highlight and shadow on her dress. Not as much. And because I have highlight and shadow, I can now put highlight and shadow in the background, which is an interesting sky, and it looks believable. But if I just dumped a sky in there with some highlight and shadow on it, and then she didn't have highlight and shadow on her, then it wouldn't have worked. So that's why everything has to go together, from post-processing to posing and to lighting, especially lighting. So if I have highlight and shadow on my subject, I can put highlight and shadow in my sky in the background, and it looks totally believable.